All right, folks, thank you for joining us this afternoon and thank you for allowing us to be a part of your day. We're really excited that you're here with us today for the application tips and tricks specifically designed for community college students in mind. Again, this is the first of three parts that we're going to be pursuing in these sessions. The first one here, being the one today. Tomorrow, we're going to have a virtual resource fair where you'll actually have engagement and hear from folks that run summer research programs or scholarship programs. And then the last day on Saturday will be the personal statement development workshop there. So you'll have an opportunity to either start building your personal statement or to continue to develop your personal statement with the assistance of some folks that are going to be guiding that conversation. So again, thank you all very much for making us a part of your day. For the next hour, we hope that you're ready to take some notes as we share some wisdom with you, and you're going to hear from some great folks that are joining us today as they also share some of their personal insight and professional insight as either program managers, faculty members, or as students. So again, really excited to be able to partake with you today. Let me start off by letting everybody know that we are recording the session. And so we are going to make it available afterward. So if you have friends that wanted to check this out later on, it will absolutely be available to you. I also wanted to take a moment to thank the folks that are hosting this session today, UC San Diego Create, the San Diego City College SACNAS chapter, and the SUBIR Intercultural Centers at San Diego City College. Thank you all for making this possible today. My name is Beto Vasquez. I have the privilege of actually working at UC San Diego Create, but I am a proud product of community college, and I'm very excited to be able to share these bits of wisdom with you because it just surprises me how many opportunities there are out there and how sometimes we're not fully informed as community college students about how to maximize those opportunities or how to see ourselves as able to take advantage of those opportunities. We don't see ourselves as good candidates for those opportunities, or quite frankly, sometimes we're just not informed that they exist. Right? Nobody tells us about them. Nobody helps us prepare for them. So that's what we wanted to do for you today is be able to walk you down that path, let you know about these opportunities, let you know what they are, maybe answer some questions, and definitely make ourselves available for your knowledge, right? So I wanted to start off by asking, everybody that's out there, how many of you ever felt like this? So take a moment and read it. I'll read it out to you, but it's a group of people and they're all thinking the same thing. And they're thinking, all these people really seem to have it together, and I still have no idea what's going on. I can't tell you how many times, I mean, whether I was a community college student, whether I was a four-year undergraduate or graduate student, or even now as I'm finishing my doctorate, I still continue to experience this, not only in my academic life, but my professional and my personal life as well, right? As a dad, as a husband. I mean, it's just overwhelming to think how often, we ourselves make ourselves feel like we're inadequate about things. And it happens pretty normally, right? It doesn't happen that we put too much thought in it, but it's just so normal for it to happen to us like that. And so because of that, we wanted to again share these different opportunities, and we want to break out of that what we see as normal for us, right? In kind of limiting ourselves to what's within our reach, what we're able to do. How do we see ourselves as scientists or as engineers or as professionals of some sort, right? And so we're going to talk about a couple of different applications, right? Because again, the workshop is called Applications, Tips, and Tricks. And there's various different types of applications when we think about applications in higher education. Some of them include, volunteer and employment applications. Some could be your transfer application as you're getting ready to leave community college and apply for a university, or maybe graduate school, right? I think we had a few folks that signed up that are four-year students and they're thinking about how do I get to graduate school, right? So those are all different types of applications, but the ones we're going to focus in on today are going to really be research focused around research and internship programs. and also scholarship applications, right? Because I think, again, these are some of the areas that are oftentimes under tapped by community college students. So we want to address that, right? We want to be able to put you up on game so that you can optimize your hustle and go out there and secure some, secure that bag, as my daughter says, right? Get out there and secure those funds to support you in your educational efforts and ultimately in your professional trajectories. So let's get right to it, right? Uh, you know, Again, before I jump into the scholarship piece, this slide just snuck up on me, right? I forgot that this was in there. But who can apply for the scholarships and for the research opportunities? Well, it's university students, community college students, and high school students, right? Although the ones that I'm going to share with you today and for the and tomorrow are going to be really focused on undergraduate students, which actually includes both community college students and university students. So anything before a bachelor's degree is considered an undergraduate. So when you see opportunities and scholarships or research that are made for undergraduate students, it includes university students and community college students. So let's talk first and foremost about scholarships. And we're going to be talking about locating, applying for, and receiving money for college. But I know I come from a culture where if I were to tell my mom that I'm going to get free money to go to school, there's a look of disbelief, right? Of thinking that, well, it sounds too good to be true, right? And the fact of the matter is that most of the time, things are like that, right? And culturally, we got to take into consideration that maybe we're not taught that there's actual people out there, organizations out there that want to help finance or support my academic efforts or yours, but there is, right? There is. And so as we jump into scholarships, the first thing I'd like to do is kind of define what that means for you, right? And when we talk about scholarships, I want us to understand that we're talking about free money. This is money that you don't have to pay back. It's not a loan, right? The funds are made available from organizations and individuals. This is financial support that's based on major, ethnicity, background, or several other different things or reasons that they can be set up. And it can usually be used for any expenses to support your education. That can include not only tuition and books, but also housing, right? Transportation, all those different types of things, depending on how the scholarship is designed and written out. So how do we find scholarships, right? I mean, it's great. I'm telling you about it. It sounds really good, but you're thinking, well, where are these things at? Well, the truth of the matter is that there's many different scholarships, many different levels that are offered for you, right? Some of them, if you're resourceful, can look around on the internet. Although I would only caution you that sometimes, on the internet, when you look up for scholarships, there could be some that pop up that ask you to pay a certain amount so that you can have access to those scholarships. That is not what we're talking about. We want to stay away from any scholarship opportunities that are asking you to pay, right? What I do want you to look at is first and foremost within your school, right? And so, for instance, San Diego City College, their application season for scholarships actually opens up in December. So that's one layer, right? So within the school scholarships, there's different opportunities, usually several different scholarships you can apply for. There might be a limit on the amount of them that you can actually win. But more or less what's happening nowadays is that most systems are allowing for you to just fill out one application and check off how many scholarships you want to be considered for. How many do you meet the criteria for? And we'll talk about that in just a moment. There's also local organizations here in San Diego. I know some of you are from out of town, but for here in San Diego, we have the San Diego Foundation, which is a local philanthropic organization. They have what they call the Common Scholarship. Again, one application that you fill out, and then you check off as many that you want to be considered for. And their application actually opens up in December as well. There's another one called Friends of Downtown. I won't spend too much time on that, but I wanted to give you examples of the different types of scholarships that are available out there. And then the last level here would be on the more national level, right? And so I'm talking about national organizations like the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, like the NAACP, or organizations like the Jack Kent Cooke Scholarship, which is a phenomenal scholarship that provides, I think, students, if I'm not mistaken, that are transferring from the community college up to 40,000 a year until they secure their undergraduate degree. That means their bachelor's degree. So pretty amazing opportunities with scholarships. And so I definitely want to encourage you all to first and foremost be resourceful in finding out what's around you. And then I'm gonna walk you through the next steps of some of the other things you want to take into consideration as you locate some of these that you qualify for. So what kinds of things do you usually need to apply for scholarships? Well, first and foremost, I mentioned earlier the criteria, right? You have to meet the specified criteria. Certain scholarships are for certain students, right? They're for certain age groups, certain ethnicities. You have to be an alum for a certain school. All kinds of different things, criteria that could be made available for a specific scholarship. So make sure that you meet the specified criteria. Make sure you follow directions when you're filling out the application. I know it sounds pretty straightforward, but you'd be surprised how easily it is that if you don't use black or blue ink as it's detailed to use, that you can be disregarded for that opportunity, right? Also, the personal statement and making sure that you have one readily available. Sometimes the personal statement is a general one. Sometimes they're asking you to answer a certain prompt or a certain question, but it's usually a variation of the same questions, right? Is, why should you be awarded this? What have you done for your education, and what is it that you want to do with yourself as you move forward through the education? About the personal statement, and we'll share a little bit more in a couple of slides, is that the personal statement can be recycled, right? So the personal statement is that it's a statement about your life. Your life probably hasn't changed, that much from last year to this year in the sense of what has already happened. So you can always just add on to your personal statement or modify it accordingly to fit what it is that they're asking for a certain scholarship. Volunteering and community service. This could be church service. This could be, things that you do out in the community, all kinds of different things. Those can be used to beef up your personal statement and show why you're a worthy candidate when it comes to scholarships. And lastly, the letters of recommendation, right? Oftentimes, folks want to know that not only you think you're great, but that other people think you're great, and that their return on the investment that they're making with you is going to be one that, if investing in you is not only going to mean that they're supporting you, but that through you, they're going to be able to make an ability to support others through the work that you do out in the community. So getting those letters of recommendation and asking for them in an appropriate manner of time is very important. So with the criteria in mind, don't waste your time. Make sure you read it. If you don't fit the criteria, I would say just kind of go along, go on with your business and find the ones that you do meet, do qualify for. Carefully denote extreme words such as only and limited to, because sometimes that can make or break your ability to apply for those. But also be attentive to and or, as this detail may include or exclude your qualification, right? So it could be that, a certain scholarship is designed with women in mind, but it's not exclusively for women, right? And men can apply. So that's the kind of nuance that you want to be attentive to. And again, if you meet the general criteria, then go ahead and proceed with filling out the application. Applications, by the way, folks, in this process can be pretty challenging and lengthy at the beginning, but I guarantee you that if you do it the first time, the second time it gets easier, and so on and so forth. And pretty soon you'll be able to apply for scholarships because you'll have a personal statement, because you'll have letters of recommendation. You can apply for multiple scholarships with ease. And so again, with the following directions, just be attentive to reading the instructions, pay close attention to deadline expectations and extra documents that are being required, right? Whether it's it could be a transcript, maybe sometimes it doesn't have to be an official transcript. Maybe sometimes they're asking you for a certificate copy of something. Who knows, right? Depending on what you're applying for, just be attentive to the ancillary documents that they may be asking you for. And definitely don't exceed the limits that are provided, right? If they're saying, 500 words, then follow 500 words. If they say a letter no longer than one page, then send in a letter no longer than one page. Again, it sounds pretty straightforward, but you'd be surprised how many folks, really just remove themselves from consideration because they don't follow these as they should. And so now to the personal statement. And again, on Saturday, we're going to be having a session exclusively for this. That's going to be led by my good friend Olivia. What I'll touch on real quick for the personal statement is that they're very important, right? I would encourage you to be genuine, be honest, and be succinct, but use all your space that you're providing at the same time. So again, if they're saying you have 500 words to tell me about yourself, use 500 words if you can. Do not send in 2 or 3, sentences, and expect for us as applicant readers to be able to see who you are in just 2 or 3 sentences. And I'll tell you from firsthand experience in my summer research program, I'm always, it's frustrating to see community college students who submit an application, a personal statement on an application that's about 3 to 5 sentences, and I'm not informed of the challenges that you've had, of the resilience that you've had because of those challenges, of the multiple roles that you play, the fact that you're not just a student, but that you have all these other responsibilities that you take on. That's very, that's noteworthy information that really helps me decide, wow, this person is responsible. Wow, this person could really benefit from this opportunity, and so on and so forth. And again, some of our guests can maybe share their opinions on that as we get to that section there. But make sure you answer the prompt, right? Again, if the prompt is, why are you worthy of receiving this award? Let them know, right? You're gonna have to advocate for yourself and let them know what an amazing person you are, and that sometimes, and I'm gonna give you this as a gift, that sometimes it's a sacrifice not to be a straight A student because you go to work or because you have to take care of your family, right? So make those sacrifices noteworthy in your statement there. Stay within the length limitations. Make sure you mention how the award would benefit you and ultimately the community. Again, why making an investment in me is going to be great for the person or the entity that's providing the scholarship. And remember, again, and I mentioned earlier, statements can be recycled, right? So you're going to have a hard time writing your very first personal statement, I guarantee it, but you're always going to have something to work with as you move forward, and you need to provide statements for other situations. And again, maybe one of our guests can tell you a little bit more about that towards the end. Volunteering and community service, it's an important piece, right? It shows that you're not just thinking about yourself, but you're willing to give back. I wouldn't say that you have to spend too much time on this, but it is important. And I do want to recognize that some of us might already be doing this, but we don't see it as that, right? We see it as something that has been ingrained in us. We see it as an obligation with our family. We might see it in different ways. But if you're at your church, being of service, if you help out with your little brother or sister's school, that's being volunteer, that's being community service. If you're helping in a skilled nursing facility of some sort, that's being of service. If you're being an intern because at the hospital because you're interested in medicine, that's being of service. So all those things are valuable and account for experience that you can write down. And I want to also encourage you to write a brag sheet, right? And that seems kind of weird for us, but as you continue to move through your professional journey, your academic journey, you're going to be asked to provide a list of awards that you received or work that you have done, or maybe presentations that you've conducted. And it's going to get difficult as you continue to go to remember those off the top of your head. So as much as you can, be prepared to write, to keep a good list of the things that you've done along the way, so that it's easy for you to reference and it's not as daunting when you're asked for this information to be provided. Again, also the same thing with community service, right? Just make sure that if you're not being involved in community service, that you think about it, or that you think how you already are and not even know it, right? So it allows for you to share your skills and gain new ones, develop self-esteem and self-confidence, network with folks, promote worthwhile activity, feel needed and valued, right? Which I think is huge, right? We don't talk about that much, but I want to have a sense of purpose in the things that I do. And so sometimes we can be a little hard on ourselves as we focus on education and not think about what this means to me personally, right? So keep those things in mind. as well as service learning, which is basically another form of community service. I won't spend too much time on this unless you all have more questions about it later on, then we can come back to it because I really want to kind of move forward towards the research component piece of it. So again, with the letters of recommendation, this is the last thing that I'll mention as far as the scholarships. You know, remember that they're strongly based on academics, right? But not just on academics. You know, it's based also on your involvement. Were you involved in class? Were you involved around campus? You know, who should recommend you? You're probably thinking of, and this could be anybody from a faculty member or a professor that you worked with closely, to the advisor of a club that you're involved with, to one of the deans, right? Depending on what you're applying for, it might limit who can be that recommender for you. But whoever it is, you know, we want to make sure that you give the courtesy of time, right? I think if I find out about a scholarship opportunity today that's due at the end of the week, you know, chances are it's probably not realistic for me to think that I'm going to get a letter of recommendation on time unless I've established a relationship and a good rapport with somebody who is willing to do that. So you always want to give, you know, anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks for somebody to do that. Some folks might ask you to draft up a letter on their behalf that they can work with, because then that allows for them to share some of the stuff that they might not know about you, right? They might just know you in class, but not know that you run a nonprofit on your spare time, or that you have, you know, children that you take care of, or that you have 2 or 3 jobs. So sometimes that could be a benefit in being asked to draft that letter for them. So again, along those lines, make sure that you share information with your recommender that they can highlight on those letters, and show appreciation. A thank you card goes really far, you know, especially when you're thinking about, you know, potentially asking that person for another letter of recommendation down the road. People want to know that their time was appreciated, and so was their effort. So next up, you know, we talked about scholarships. Really, a lot of the things that we talked about scholarships on, as far as the letter of recommendation, and as far as the you know the service, the other components that I touched on, really are going to be applicable to research opportunities as well. But when we talk about research opportunities, we're not just talking about being provided free money now. We're talking about kind of like a job, really, because a research is going to give you the opportunity to be able to go do research for an X amount of time. Sometimes it's 8 weeks, sometimes it's 10 weeks. Sometimes you get to live on campus, sometimes you don't live on campus. And in exchange for that, then you're going to receive what we call a stipend. And that stipend can actually be anywhere between $3,000 to $6,000, depending on the amount of time and what program you're going to. So it's a really great way to actually get paid to learn, right? And so what do you need to apply for research programs? Well, again, you need to meet the specified criteria. Sometimes these programs might be best on your major. There's a lot of, when we talk about research programs, there's a lot of them within STEM areas, but there are also some within non-STEM areas, right? So some of you that might be in history or social sciences or critical gender studies or some of these other majors that are not STEM based, there's still research opportunities available for you as well. But again, you have to meet the specified criteria. You have to follow the directions. You have to submit a personal statement. And you will also more than likely have to provide letters of recommendation on why you should be selected. So again, the benefits of participating in research: get paid, right? Let's secure that bag. I know for myself, most of the time being a community college student and having 2 or 3 jobs and being a full-time student, in the kids that I have, right? Through the academic year, I made it a point to kind of get by with my financial aid and kind of a little bit of work on the side. But during the summer, it was really difficult because during the summer, there was no school, there was no financial aid. Things were a little bit more challenging, right? Especially if I worked on school and wasn't able to work during the summer. So getting into summer research programs was really a saving grace for me because it allowed for me to continue to invest into myself in a science fashion, while at the same time getting paid to learn, right? Getting paid to develop that science identity. So programs usually pay, again, between $3,000 to $6,000. That's a pretty significant amount for you to go into a lab and invest in yourself in research, right? On top of that, some of these programs actually pay you to travel, right? So you can apply for programs that are on the East Coast, and they will cover your travel to go to the East Coast. They will put you up in housing, and they will add an additional stipend on top of that, right? So you're going to get you're literally getting a paycheck. You're getting paid for room and boarding and for travel, and you get to see a new part of the country that perhaps you've never been. And this allows for you to make connections with other professionals and other students from different regions, right? From different states, which is always a really good thing. You'll be able to acquire work experience and build skills, a variety of different skills, figure out what you're interested in, right? Sometimes I think we have the idea that, oh, it looked really cool to watch CSI, right? If you remember any of those shows, to watch CSI and oh, I want to be a scientist. And you get to work in a lab, and then you figure out, you know what, I really don't like working in labs, or this specific type of lab because because I have to work with small amounts, or because I have to work with blood, or whatever the reason may be. But again, internships and research opportunities allow for you to test out certain areas, if you will, to see if it's a good fit for you. So before you make a full commitment to getting a bachelor's degree or a graduate degree or a PhD in a certain area, you get to try out the goods, right, and see if that's the good fit for you. So really great way to kind of put your feelers out there. You learn to conduct scientific inquiry and communicate your science, right? So in community college, I remember we do the labs, and I teach community college as well. And so sometimes students want to hurry up and get the classes done. They want to hurry up and get the labs done. And so there's a lot of learning about theory, and there's a lot of about learning about what the teacher wants you to learn. But then there's a disconnect between how you really see this out in real life, or what that scientific inquiry process looks like, or how do I apply scientific inquiry in my everyday life. And so going through science research, going through research programs really allow us to kind of take a deeper dive into those spaces, and then to learn how to communicate what we're learning along the way. So this helps with personal, academic, and professional development and growth. And it also bolsters your chances for other opportunities, right? So let's say right now you're a community college student, you're getting involved with summer research, you're getting paid to do this. You're adding this to your resume, you're adding this to your personal statement, so that when you're applying for transfer to a university, this looks really attractive on there, that you've put yourself out there towards learning research, towards getting involved. So it really helps you be a good candidate, not only for those transfer opportunities and school opportunities, but also even for other future research opportunities, right? Maybe something with a bigger stipend, or with a bigger organization, maybe an organization that you've been dreaming about working with. So this will make you a better candidate for those types of things. So you'll be able to conduct research, and all the pictures that I'm gonna show you, these are pictures from students from my summer program here. So the summer program that I get to work with is in nano engineering at UC San Diego. So you'll be able to sit in one of these spaces here, hopefully next to each other like this. I know right now we're in very interesting times, robust times. But at some point, hopefully we'll get back into the lab as we're seeing these folks here, and conduct that research, right? And develop your science identity. I think oftentimes, as we're trucking along in our classes semester to semester, I've told students before that when I was a community college student, sometimes it felt like I was doing life at community college and I was never going to leave, right? And so the development of science identity didn't really happen until when you start really diving into these research opportunities. You start to see yourself as a scientist. You start to see yourself, actually doing something along those lines, and it really helps to boost your morale and be able to see yourself through this new lens, especially if you're a first generation student, especially if you're from an underrepresented background, in maybe the first in your family or your community to pursue higher education or a STEM route. The last thing, I have two more pictures that I'll show you on here, is again, you get paid to learn, right? This is Nayeli. She was from the LA region, was with us a couple of years ago. and is doing amazing things now, right? And the very first program that she participated in, and now is probably, continued to be in a couple of different programs. And also, just because you're going to research programs doesn't mean you have to compromise who you are, right? Becoming a scientist doesn't mean that I have to trade in who I've known myself to be this new person. It means that I actually get to normalize the ability that I have and recognizing that I can have a new facet to me, right? I like to describe students like community jewels, right? Like a jewel, it has different sides to it, and all the different roles that we play in our life as a scientist, as a partner, as the homie, whatever it is, right? What all those facets really contribute to the worth that we have in our communities. And so, see, here you're seeing, the development of network, but also the normalization of being in new spaces and not going into a 4-year environment and saying, "Oh, I'm just a community college student." Because to a lot of those kids out there in your community, to younger generations in your family, you are what they're looking up to. And so this is taking it to the next level for you. So how do you find these research opportunities? Well, again, be resourceful, right? You can use the internet again, but you shouldn't have to pay for any opportunities. I would say connect with STEM support programs at your school. For example, here in California, we have a lot of MESA programs at various different colleges throughout California. Reach out to local chapters of national organizations that might exist on your campus, right? Whether it's SACNAS, whether it's NSBE, SHIP, SWE, Phi Theta Kappa, the Honor Society. Oftentimes, those folks have connections to a lot of these different programs, or will announce them as they go. So be attentive to that. Check out local municipalities. So I used to work with the city of San Diego as a biologist, and I didn't know when I was going through school that the city of San Diego or the county of San Diego actually hired chemists and biologists, and they had programs for students to participate in these programs, and it led to employment for a lot of these individuals. So check those out and see if there's any opportunities in your counties for students to be able to go to work. Reach out to national organizations or check out their web pages. Sometimes some of these research opportunities, which are also known as REUs or SURFs, sometimes. So REU is Research Experience for Undergraduates. SURF is Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowships. So they come by a variety of different names, but it's ultimately the same thing, a paid research opportunity. So for the last one, the national organizations, again, based on discipline, NAACP, the American Chemical Society, SACNAS, all these different organizations oftentimes can connect you with different opportunities. Or if you go to their conferences, if there's opportunities to attend these national conferences, oftentimes you will walk into a banquet room with, I'd say hundreds of tables, many of which have their own rendition of different summer research programs. So there are many summer research programs out there. Again, AAAS, the American Association for Science, the National Science Foundation, the NOAA, which is National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association. I hope I got that right. Somebody correct me if I didn't. A ton of other federal agencies and other local universities, and again, the conferences. One of the very important things that I'll say to you is that if you are one of those folks that have the opportunity to go to a conference and you collect materials and cards and all that, please make sure that you follow up. It's instrumental that you follow up with folks and that you say, hey, I'm expressing interest. I'm interested in your program. I wanted to know more. Make sure that you follow up with folks. Don't just collect material. If you don't ask, you won't know. So make sure you put yourself out there as much as you can. So here we go. I've rushed through that thing only because it's 2:35 right now. I wanted to make sure that we have plenty of opportunity for our speakers to share their own suggestions, either as students or as professionals, that they can share with you. And then also, I wanted to make sure that we created a space for you to ask some of your questions, and to us, so that we can make sure that we answer those for you. So at this point, I'm going to invite Ronnie Vasquez. who's currently a student at UC San Diego right now, to step on up. And Ronnie, can you share with us? Can you share with our attendees some of your, what your most, what you feel are your most important takeaways about being a student, about being, applying for different programs, and anything else that you might see as important or that helped you in your journey?
Thank you, Beto. And hello, everyone. As Beto said, my name is Ronnie Vasquez. I'm a chemical engineering major at UC San Diego. I am an international student as well. I'm from Venezuela. So I'm also a transfer from San Diego City College. So I've known the community college route as well. And I'm very happy to be here. To start, I am very familiar with the scholarship process. I used to be a peer advocate at San Diego City College, coming from another country. You come lost. You don't know what's the educational system. You don't know what opportunities you have here. And I think that was the major reason I wanted to step up, learn everything that I could, and take all the opportunities that I was not able to get in my country due to the situation over there. So the first thing that I would say that you should do is just build that relationship with all the faculty and other students that you can. They're always going to be there to support you, build that networking since the beginning. And there are different scholarships. For example, at City, they were all for all the students that were in the college. I know there are different requirements for them, but they're all for the students that work there. I know that they're for international students and undocumented students as well. So the institutions, they're free to set their own financial aid policies. And just something that financial aid is not the same as scholarships. The scholarships you earn and the financial aid you apply for it. And that's the federal government money. But yeah, and in regards with uh, RU opportunities, make sure you are you go to the university that you want. You look through them. They always offer positions for you as an undergrad, and they're always willing to help you and to get the experience that you need to get there and in the world, and do the best you can. I actually participated as an IRACDA program at UCSD 2 years ago. It was a great experience for me. I had a mentor who is still my mentor. I still reach out to him, even though I don't work with him anymore in the lab. And it was a chemistry lab. And I knew, like, I wanted to try to see if research was something that I wanted to do. I enjoyed the experience, but I realized that's something that's the route that I don't not want to take. I want to go to industry, but that's the experience that you get, right? You try, you figure it out, and you move on with what you want to do. So I encourage you to apply, to look for different opportunities. And I see that Olivia is dropping the link for the surf program that I participated 2 years ago. She was also one of the mentors to work with, and it was a great experience. And I encourage you to apply and look for the opportunities out there. If you have any other question, Beto, I'm happy to answer.
Excellent. Thank you, Ronnie. Just stand by because a student might have a question for you in the time that we hear from the other speakers. But thank you for sharing that. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Raymond Sweet from Arizona State to share a few words and insight as a program manager and anything else that you'd like to add with respects to scholarships and summer research opportunities. Dr. Sweet?
Thank you, Beto. Beto, let me just share one slide. That's all I have. Can everybody see the slide on tips and suggestions?
Yeah.
Good. Yes, thank you again, Beto, for having me participate. And I would like to share with the many students that are on the call some tips and suggestions for applying to REU programs. Beto has already mentioned that, and so did Ronnie. So it stands for Research Experience for Undergraduates. And it's been a program that's been around for many, many years. Many research universities offer that during the summer. It's typically a 9-week, 10-week type program where you work on a project selected by a faculty member, and you often work with the graduate students and postdocs in the professor's lab. And it's a great opportunity to get hands-on experience working in a research lab. And of course, as Beto mentioned, you also get paid for it. Historically, it has always been geared towards students from regular 4-year colleges, universities, but in recent years, there have been greater emphasis on engaging students from community colleges. So just because many or most of you are from community colleges, don't be discouraged. You have very good chance of being considered. As a matter of fact, in my program at Arizona State, we specifically target community college students simply because we recognize that there's a need to do so. And of our students that have gone through our program, they have gone on to good jobs, gone on to 4-year schools, they transferred. Others have gone on to graduate schools. So it really works for you folks. So just a few things. Beto have covered most of these already. I just want to emphasize a couple of things. Plan ahead. Usually these programs don't get released until maybe the first of the year, but the application deadline is usually end of February, early March. So if you're interested in a program like this, don't wait until the program announcement comes out. Start planning for it. Usually you're required to submit transcripts. If you have gone to more than one school, it may take time to gather all the transcripts. So start getting them together. And letters of recommendations are also very, very important. Good grades are not enough because many, if not most of the applicants have good grades. And I'm sure many of you have good grades too. So you need to differentiate yourself. And that's where letters of recommendation comes from. And so start working to get your professors to know you. You may be in a class of 40, 50 students, and it's very hard for a faculty member or professor to know much about you. So start talking to them when you have office hours, talk to them, tell them what you're doing, what your plans are, so that they could write a more personalized letter of recommendation. And that makes all the difference. Or if you work on a part-time job, get your supervisor to start thinking, hey, I want to try for this in the summer, would you be willing to write me a letter? And the last thing, again, Beto covered this, are some sort of essay or narrative. Again, that's where you make the big differentiation. Again, the grades are not the only thing. So the important thing is make the program managers understand why you think being able to participate in a summer program would make a big impact in your life, in your goals and what you want to achieve. Because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for something that will make a positive impact on your life, on your career, and on your family. So again, as Beto mentioned, tell them something about yourself other than your school and your work. Are you the first in your family to go to college? Are you trying to set a good example for your younger brothers and sisters that if you push yourself to accomplish something, you would achieve something that's impactful? So think about those things ahead of time, because once the application window opens, you don't have a lot of time to put all these things together. And finally, again, Beto had mentioned it, read the instructions carefully. You need to submit certain forms by certain times. There are requirements. So just do it diligently, and I think you would be very helpful to your cause. So with that, I will stop and thank you all for your time. There you go. Beto.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Sweet. Next up, I'd like to let me take a moment real quick. I wanted to emphasize, you touched on something very important, Dr. Sue, which is scholarship season, application season. I call it application season because really, as you saw earlier when I showed you with the scholarships, really in December time, in fall time, you'll start seeing a lot of applications open up. Many scholarships, many of the summer research programs. So it makes sense that as this August comes around, somewhere along those lines, you kind of start thinking about what you want to apply for, start identifying programs that you're interested in applying in, and start collecting some of those materials or putting out your solicitations for letters of recommendation. So thank you for touching on those important points, Dr. Sweet. Dr. Vasquez Mena, Oscar, would you mind sharing with us some of your insight, please?
Sure. Actually, Raymond, I love your slides. Could you share your slides again? I just want to kind of reemphasize some of the stuff because they are really, really good, I think.
Whose slides? My slides?
No, Raymond's slides. I mean, the last slide about the, yeah, the letter of recommendation, that is something that is very important. And as someone mentioned before, you have to kind of earn that letter, right? Don't expect that you just write an email to your professor that you never talk to him during the quarter and think, oh, he's gonna write a letter for me. I have written letters, and if it was a student who was very active in my class, who was like coming to office hours, who talked to me about his interests in life and why he wanted to do research, I am super happy to write a letter for that student, right? But also, when I get a letter from someone that I don't even remember that he was in my class, I even forget to answer them because I'm like, what am I going to talk in my letter about this student, right? So you have to kind of go beyond and, nurture that relation with your professor, right? And I'm sure they're going to collect that at the end in a nice letter of recommendation, which is, as Raymond said, critical, right? Build that relation with a professor. That is the key for the recommendation letter, right? And I also like how Raymond says it very clearly. I think normally in any research project, and when you're evaluated by someone who is doing research, in science and research, we always have these two questions. What do you want to do? Why do you want to do it? And how you're going to do it, right? That's kind of like any NSF grant, any DARPA or NIH proposal has to have those three components, right? So in your essay, you have to, at least for research programs, you have to start to show kind of that sort of analytical thinking, what is it that I want to do, right? Do I want to do artificial intelligence? Do I want to do nanotechnology or immunology? What is your goal, right? If you are not clear about what is your goal, then it's going to be very difficult to get that opportunity, okay?
So Dr. Vasquez, if I may just interrupt for a minute. So there's a couple of questions. It sounds great. All those suggestions are fantastic, right? But if you think about a community college student and they're barely getting started and they're trying to figure out what they want to do, they might not necessarily know exactly what they want to do. So my question is, what would you suggest for a student like that? And also as a professor, what would you recommend for students? Because I'm seeing some of the chat here is, hey, I'm a little shy, I'm timid, I don't know how to ask for one. What would you recommend on those two notes for people that are shy and timid about asking for those letters, and also for folks that don't necessarily know exactly what they want to do?
Well, I think that's why it's important that you start thinking about what you want to do, because these are the kind of things that you can talk with your professor, right? Or with your boss, this is my interest and this is what I would like to do. And really spend the time to think about what you want to do. These are not questions that are easy to answer, right? It's like, what major I want to do? Well, if you don't spend the time to think about it, it's going to be difficult. And it's not that you have to give correct answers in this letter, right? It's not that you have right or wrong answers, but at least you have to show that you have done the work of thinking about it, right? That you have these or these interests. And as Ray mentioned, why do you want to do this? Well, because I'm a first generation, right? Or maybe I want to do stuff in, in medicine because I have someone who had like a very bad disease and I want to do something about it. It's about showing your interest, right? And you can show that interest in the letter. And honestly, I really think that you need to spend, at least I would say, spend 1 month typing on, undergraduate research opportunities or research topics, you have to spend the time to kind of explore those areas, right? I mean, to get these research opportunities, it's not going to come just in one weekend or in one week. But it's something that I think, you just have to look around, type on their internet, undergraduate research opportunities, and they will describe topics. If you want to apply to a research program at UCSD, for example, just go to the website and type professors who are doing research there and find what kind of topic they are doing. You really have to show a lot of initiative and the willingness to do it, right? And I think, honestly, in a personal statement, you can tell if the student kind of has done that introspection about like saying, this is what I want to do, what I would like to do, and the student who just want to kind of like fill the spaces, right? So I would say, it's really about doing your homework, right? You have to do your homework of the two things, building that relation with the professor in the letter of recommendation, and in your essay and narrative, right? You're going to show there why do you want to get into a research lab. And again, it's not about wrong or right answers. It's about being honest and showing that you have that authentic interest in doing research.
Thank you. Yeah, and I really appreciate that note about the honest piece. I think even if you don't know, to your point right now, Professor, you don't necessarily have to know exactly what you want to do, but it's okay for you to say in your statement that you're interested in that type of research, but you're not necessarily very well informed, but you would like to learn more. It's okay to be honest in that sense, because then it prepares them to know where it is that you at with that. I'm reminded of my very first time that I actually had applied and been accepted for a program. I got to tell you, it was way out of my comfort zone, and I was provided a list of things to that people were doing research on, and I had no idea what half of these things meant. And so, as much as I researched, and I still didn't understand a lot of the terms and what that research was on, I did the next best thing, and I looked at the pictures of the labs, and I looked for the lab that looked the happiest, and that's the lab that I signed up for. And so, that might not be your experience, right? That was my experience. That was taken into consideration, these new spaces that I was in. But, by far it was one of the best choices that I made, stepping forward, because I could have easily just said, you know what, I'm way out of my comfort zone here. I don't know what to do. But you have to take a step into learning how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that can mean doing the research. It can mean looking, having to define certain words 2 or 3 times till they kind of make sense to you. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're continuing to move forward with all that. Thank you, Dr. Vasquez, for that. The last person I'd like to invite up is Doctora Olivia Molinar Ingles, to tell us a little bit more about your tips and tricks that you want to suggest for our attendees today.
Sure. I will not give you guys a lot because I'm actually giving you guys a personal statement workshop, and you guys will hear all about the tips and tricks that I would recommend there. But you've already gotten a lot of great ones. The slide that was up earlier was amazing. Thank you so much, Doctor, for sharing that with us. That's pretty much a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be telling you. Planning ahead for me probably is the biggest tip and trick that I'm going to tell you about, because applying to these research experiences, it isn't about just getting your application ready for the application, but day one of your college career is when you need to start planning for all these things. What are you doing to stand out? What are you doing in terms of, it's great. You're going to say, I'm a first generation college student. And a lot of schools may say, well, we have 30 first generation college students. What are you doing as a first generation college student to promote, minorities in STEM, for example, since this is kind of one of the topics we're talking about? What kind of volunteer work have you been doing? And sometimes we think, oh, well, I already did all this stuff in high school. And you have all these different things that you've had, but as you move forward along in your career, for example, high school at your stage, you can still use some of those examples, but you're not going to be able to use them forever. So you need to start creating new experiences. You need to start creating new agenda of what you're going to write about. And I'm going to tell you a lot about how to craft effective personal statement too, so I won't get into too much of that. But I think one of the things that Beto said was really important, and he said, out of my comfort zone. And I keep seeing a lot of messages here on the side of how, you know, you're shy, how it's hard to reach out. These are all things that we all went through. I was that shy student. I didn't like to speak in public. I didn't want to put myself out there. And these are all things that day one, you need to start working on. Day one, you need to be, oh, I'm shy. I don't know how to speak to this professor. You have a whole semester to get the courage and be, oh, okay, I'm going to talk to this professor. And then maybe they'll write a letter of rec. But a lot of professors will also say, you know, just because you got an A+ in my class doesn't mean that I'm going to write you a great letter of recommendation. That's another thing that you have to think about. So it's not just about going to the professor and having an intention for them to write your letter of rec because you did well in their class. What you need to do is you need to show up and you need to ask questions. You need to go to office hours. You need to make sure that the professor gets to know you on a different level, because then all the letters of rec sound the same. So how are you going to stand out? That's my biggest tip. Day one, you need to start crafting out your application since that's that first day that you start college. For me, I will tell you, I have a lot of experience with research experiences as a student myself. So I did a research for undergraduates at Carnegie Mellon University as an undergrad. And then I also did an international RAU in Spain. So it's not just about United States, but you can go elsewhere to learn more about these career paths. Everything was paid for. Airfare, dorm, food salary, a food stipend, and then another actual stipend that you can live off. So those are really important things to do. And now on the other front, I've now been reviewing applications. So Ronnie was one of the students that was in the SURF program in the Department of Pharmacology. And that is a split program where we recruit 5 to 6 students from community college and 5 to 6 students from all the US in terms of a 4-year institution. So you get peer mentored. So if you're at a 2-year college, you get peer mentored by students who are at a 4-year college, and you know, it becomes a really nice cohort. And you can talk to Ronnie all about it. I am actually one of those mentors who you will work under in the lab. We also provide all the professional development. So for example, teaching you about the GRE, teaching you about PhD programs, teaching you about master programs, teaching you about postbacks, teaching you about how to get into medical school. And I think the last thing that I'll say is, you know, when you're crafting out these applications, the slide was already there. Make sure that you're looking at the instructions. And there's a lot of things that the instructions don't say, so that you have to speak to others about these different criteria that is needed. So for example, I don't know, can you guys raise your thumb or raise your hand who's pre-med? Anyone on here who's pre-med? Okay, well, that's really great. Okay, you're pre-med. We can talk about that in another time, but a lot of these research opportunities are actually for students who want experience at the bench. So a lot of pre-med students will apply so they can become more competitive. However, you need to be really careful with the language you use when you're applying to these programs, because a lot of professors will turn away students who are pre-med. And you don't even know if you're pre-med because you don't even know what it's like to be a doctor. How long have you shadowed a doctor? How long have you been actually doing the work, you know, that will tell you, you know, do you want to be a doctor? Doctors, you know, there's a high suicide rate amongst doctors. Yes, they're really high paid. There's a lot of respect. But until you are doing the work, you won't really know if you really are going to be good at it and if you're really going to like it. So all those things are important to think about. All those things are things that I'm going to tell you about as you're crafting your personal statement. And I know it's already 3, so I will leave all the tips and tricks for my personal statement workshop.
All right, thank you, Olivia. So yeah, as you mentioned, thank you very much to all of you for your insight, and definitely, I hope all of you were copying my notebook that I shared with you today, and taking your own notes. Before we sign off today and get ready for tomorrow, tomorrow's going to be exciting. Tomorrow we're going to do our virtual resource fair. We have folks from Harvard, we have folks from UCSD programs, we have folks from scholarship programs, from federal programs to talk to you that you'll be able to spend a little bit more time with and learn more about their programs. Don't forget the application checklist before we sign off. Before you submit your applications, make sure you do these things. Make sure you fill in all the blank spaces. Make sure that all the requested items are included. Make sure you spell check your content, the names of the people that you're wanting to research with, the addresses. Make sure that you keep copies of the applications. Follow all the rules, all the requirements that are listed on those applications, and make sure you submit on time. Very important that you submit things on time. And so with that, I want to again thank you for joining us today. I leave you with this quote that the expert in anything was once a beginner. Don't be so hard on yourself, thinking that you have to have it all figured out. Don't think that you are expected to go in, having an expertise as a PhD. If you're a community college student, you're not. These programs are designed to help you learn more about how to feel comfortable in these new spaces and how to fulfill your identity as a scientist or as an engineer or whatever other type of research that you want to do. So again, in closing, I want to thank you. I want to thank all our guests that spoke with you today. I want to thank all of you who were brave enough to put your questions out there and ask. If we didn't get around to answering your question today, don't fret. Tomorrow, come on back. We'll make sure that we get to that question. It doesn't matter if it was on the topic for today. It's all good. We're familia here. We're going to take care of you. We want to make sure that you leave fully informed. We're going to hook you up with people. We're going to hook you up with Olivia, who's going to help you with your personal statements, whether it's already started or you need to get it started. And she has a whole wealth of resources and people that are going to be supporting you with that. So again, thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of yours. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Gracias.